thinking towards a future where I actually served in the military, had military service, like combat, you know, or trained for that, whether or not I went to war. Military service. I'm drawing on my work experience as a lifeguard, and something I did in part of that, which was I did vocal training and voice development, and in regards to rule enforcement. So there's rule enforcement, there's law enforcement, there's standards enforcement in the world, and so lifeguarding falls into a rule enforcement category. Law enforcement, or like the police force, is an example of like, well, if they can't swim, they're not higher tier at the pool, you know. We are the highest authority in that response realm. Well, like as in rule enforcement, and so there's a little bit of, it was a job where I went in, and it very much, so I'm Tanis of Seattle. Today, Sunday, 3 May 2026, and here I assess and kind of evaluate, would my vocal training and voice development from when I worked as a lifeguard, approximately 2008, 2009, 2010, 2011, 2012, would it translate to military service? And if so, in what ways? And so for this one, it's thinking of the shouting of commands and thinking of the responding to the shouting of commands. Like, I have had to shout orders on a pool deck. You're like two people to, like, you know, to try and, like, let's say something happened, and they're like doing something that, like, let's say somebody didn't pass a swimming test. Okay. And they're walking towards water that's over their head. And the highest percentage of drownings occurred in 3 to 4 feet deep water. So essentially, if somebody who's not tall enough to breathe out of the water starts walking towards that water, I need to yell and direct. So not just vocal training, but use my voice and direct back, right, to shallower water, because that's where most people die in drownings. So, like, we were given those statistics, those numbers, those realities of, like, do we want somebody to die on our watch or not? And it was no, right? So then I need to be able to communicate that. Like, it was basic pointing or communication skills, right? But also being loud enough, right, and speaking and looking at the person and making sure they can see, like, I'm saying back, right? Like, they tried that swim test and then they didn't pass. So, like, remember, go back, right? So some just, like, basic survival, like, for real survival. And I'm like, in a military context, that would be, that person is advancing with a gun, get back, that kind of thing, right? So the vocal development there, but am I in an authority position? Right. So in that sense of, like, from an authority position, I would say being in the military, I could build upon that. In terms of being just, like, let's say the lowest tier soldier in the military, I still need to be able to respond to commands with a strong voice. And part of rule enforcement was, I was a woman, and males have a deeper voice and perhaps are better at projecting than women. So I actually had to find my deep projectable voice as a lifeguard to enforce rules with the same, so that the people on the deck would interpret them with the same amount of urgency or severity as a man's voice. Right. So, and I actually used that in a later, when I worked in student housing on campus, they became called the no Alani mode, like, because I had this, like, switch that I could flip and be like, this needs to be listened to. So, and it has, I've already applied it into a housing situation, or not a situation, but like a position where I worked. And so that one was in Hawaii. But for this one, for lifeguarding, was like, yes. And it required development. And so I think, like, there might be additional vocal training and voice development that would be required if I served in the military. However, I have gone through it before, and I've had to learn, you know, listen to the senior lifeguard. When he says blank and he says, you do blank, I listen. And as scary as that is, like, you know, like those baby steps, it would be just like, just a little bit louder this time, you know, listen to him, and, like, learn to make my voice stronger as a woman. It was really, was a really big gender identity actually development. And also taking into account my gender and being like, not letting it get confused. And so it's like, in that sense, yes, perhaps more application in the future. I say the concern there is don't go too far for myself. So I would say something that's true to my Cristiano and I is like, we take a shower together, we get out of the shower, and there's one towel. And he takes the towel and he goes, he's like, he looks at me, so he doesn't have to say that because he took it. He says, I enjoy the view more. And I need to not let my lifeguarding or my vocal training and voice development, or military service vocal training and voice development, ruin that moment. And staying true to who I am and responding, I enjoy the view less. And then he drops the towel and I say, oops, right? And remembering that I am a female, so even if I know how to be on par and listen to on par with a man, that doesn't mean to put that in that situation, right? It might be a bit inappropriate for me to do. So not doing it. So in addition to, what I'm trying to get at here is, in addition to vocal training and voice development, there's also self-temperance in knowing when to turn it off. Not everybody is capable of changing their tone, but really making it sure not to overexhaust myself, perhaps. So that's a little bit on would my lifeguarding, vocal training, and voice development translate to military service?